What's up, Lake Travis? This is going to be your boat deckhand training. I give this class, or I've given it the last couple of years. It usually takes a couple hours, and I've done every single engine company. So a lot of you have gotten this, unless you were off or through trades or whatever, you just missed it. It's one of the things I have to do every year. And instead of teaching the class 15 times, I'm making this video. So in the past, the class has been about 2 hours. This video is about 50 minutes. So kind of streamlines it, makes it a little bit faster. So I'll be taking you through each of the different systems on the boat, all the different things, like the different categories on the boat with your motors or the electronics. You'll just be learning kind of about the boat from bow to stern. It's just some general knowledge about the boat. It's good to know the boat is 28 feet long, and that's without the motors attached and the motor guards. So when you add those, we're more in the 30 range. The boat has a 9-foot beam on it. It's 9 foot wide. When the motors are in the full down position, they draft 30 inches. So if you're in shallow water, that's what you need if your motors are fully down. The boat weighs about 8,000 pounds when it's loaded with gear, and it's probably close to like 8,300 pounds. It has a 100-gallon fuel cell on it, and that fuel is for the fire pump and both the motors that drive the boat. So we're going to start out with the boat lift, and I'll take you guys down and take you step by step through the process of right when you get there, what you do when you lower the boat and kind of how that works. So here we go. Alright, to start off, when you first get to the boat, what you're going to need to do is, if you're approaching an engine 601 and engine 601 only, we have a remote to start lowering the boat, and that's going to be on your knock ski. So if you release your knock ski, if you can see where I'm at here, we just crested the hill and the boat is in view, and we have a long range remote here. So if you hit down on this remote, I should be able to activate it from here. Down there's a light about just like this one here that starts flashing, indicating that the remote has activated the lift to go into the down position. It's really hard to see during the day and much easier to see at night. But the thing is you don't want to continue to hit down, because what will happen is the lift actuates in the down position, you hit it again, and it'll stop going in the down position. So what I tend to do is I hit it down once, and then I keep my eye on the boat, and you can see the boat start to lower, and that's my best indicator during the day whether or not I've activated that remote.
Right, I can't even see that.
All right, so I wanted you guys to see this too. Whenever you do hit the remote, what it is, it's hitting this antenna here. That's our long-range antenna, and this light that's blinking here, that's what you're looking at. So even from the position here down the dock, you can see that's fairly difficult to see unless it's nighttime. So your best indicator is always going to be to hit the button one time and watch the boat and see if the boat falls. All right, so some things to know about our lift is that our lift is an 8,800 pound lift, which we got because our boat fully loaded weighs around 8,000 pounds. We know this because once we get all 4 firefighters on here, they'll tend to start to sink that lift if we have it in the full up position. Some other things I want to talk about is this is how you're going to find it. If you've hit the down and you come down here, you'll find it blinking. In order to, if I hit down again, all it does is put my switches to the neutral position. So this is important to know that when I was talking about hitting the down one time and watching for the fall of the boat, that's where it becomes critical because you're going to assume you hit the antenna. Because if you did not and you hit down again, what you're going to do is cancel out the first thing that you did, which was start the lower. If you hit down again, you'll cancel that lower. So you don't necessarily need to do anything when you come down here and the boat's in the water. You can just jump on and go and leave these lights flashing. It's not a big deal. I just wanted you guys to be able to see that if you hit down again, it puts it to the neutral position. So if I were wanting to raise the boat, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit up, but first I'm going to have my guys position the boat where it needs to be. I have a line right here that I want tight on either side. They're my diagonal lines. I bet you guys didn't know I was that flexible. And they're going to center the boat right where they want it. You want these diagonal lines taut, and you want it centered in the lift. And once you've got that accomplished, Benson, I got that. I've got a guy in the rear here, and then a guy on either side centering it, and your guy in the rear is going to tell you whether you're positioned correctly. He said yes, so I hit up. That's going to activate my lift up. When it starts to lift up, there's several stages. The first stage, you'll hear the lift hit the bottom of the boat, and the boat will become relatively stable. You don't need to hold it as much, but you still need to hold it. And it just came up and hit the boat, and now it will continue to raise from here. The way you know that the boat is completely raised and your pontoons that are holding the boat up are completely full is you will see bubbles start to come out from the bottom of the pontoon. If you do not see air bubbles coming out of the pontoon, it is not full. In the same way, the way you know it's fully lowered is when you hit down, air is going to come out of these tubes in the back, and you know that it's fully down when there is no more air coming out of these tubes. The pontoons will fall in the full down position. Okay, we've got a Honda 3000 IS generator on here. It powers only a couple of things on the boat, but what I want you guys to be able to do is know how to check the fuel, which Sandlin's going to show you here. There's a gauge that you can check that shows what the fuel's at, and then you can also unscrew the cap and visually check, which is located on the top. So if you are coming down here to do the check, you want to make sure it's got fuel in it, and also you want to check the oil, which is in the back. And Sandlin, if you can show them kind of where you check the oil. There's a little tab you pull, and then it's a dipstick right there. So, and then I want you guys to know how to start the generator. It's pretty straightforward. There's just a choke and then a start key. We keep the fuel in the on position on this generator, and if for whatever reason your breaker trips, what you'll have to do is you'll have to come power everything off, and then you'll have to hit this reset button and fire everything back up if you trip a breaker for whatever reason. The breaker tends to trip when you're in really choppy water, and I think it's because the oil indicator gets all screwy on this generator whenever it's bouncing around a lot. I also want you guys to know what it powers. That's inside the cab. It powers our air conditioner, which is a 12,000 BTU air conditioner. It's supposed to be a heater too, a 5,000 BTU heater, but that does not work, and it never has on this unit. And then it also operates a plug, or powers a plug that's on the console. This is just for charging phones, or if you need to plug something in for whatever power you have. A lot of times in the winter, we will have a space heater in here if we're going to be on the boat for any length of time, and we'll run the generator and use that plug for that. So I'm going in depth on a lot of things like the generator. Now we're going to talk about the motors real quick. And these aren't necessarily things, obviously, if you guys have a call that you're going to be coming down here and checking the fluids on everything. But when you come down here to do your weekly checks on it, you need to know how to properly check all the motors. So along, just going with these motors, we have two twin 225 Honda outboards. And when you come down here to do the weekly, I want you guys to be able to check the oil on it. So to do that, Benson's going to lift off the cowling, which can be a little bit tricky. There's a latch in the front here that he lifts up. And the firefighter Sam will pull the cowling over and set it safely on the dock. So once you've got this off here, the oil checks dipstick is right here, and you just want to lift that up, and you'll need a rag or something to wipe it, but you can see the dot where it needs to be up to. Can you see the top dot? You got a shot of that?
Sort of. I think you can tell.
Okay. Well, hopefully you guys can see. If not, then just trust me. There's a couple of dots. And that's where you check the oil. And that's all I really need you guys to be able to do is check the oil on these. The tricky thing that these guys are going to show you how to do is to put the cowling back on. Because it snaps back into place, but it takes a little bit of finesse sometimes. But the important thing to know is that you want to snap in the front first, and then snap in the back. Go ahead, guys. So you kind of press down on the front first. Once you hear it click, press down the back, and then when you think you've got it, start pulling up, and as long as the front or back doesn't pull up, you know it's secure and in place. So we're going to be talking a little bit on how to start the motors. Now this video that we're doing is a deckhand course, and the reason that I include starting the motors is because you may be the first dude down here, and you may not necessarily be driving the boat, but you may have to get it started for whoever is going to be driving. Maybe they're lagging behind or whatever, and it's just good knowledge to know about the boat because as you advance into being able to drive the boat. So to start out, there's two battery switches, one for the port side motor and one for the starboard, and they're going to be up and down, indicating that they're off. And the two bottom red switches, you're going to click right or clockwise. And if you'd stay down here, now they're indicating that they're in the on position. This yellow switch here is for paralleling the battery. So if I have one bad one and one good one, if I switch this over, it parallels them, so I'm able to start the motor. If I have a bad battery, I could start each motor. So once you've got the battery switches on, you can come up here and turn your keys into the on position. You're going to get a beep from each of the motors. And if I press the key in and turn to start, it chokes the motor, and that should do it. That's one motor, and I'll also get an RPM now here, indicating that that motor's on. So I should be getting an RPM here once he starts that motor. So now I've got the starboard motor going, and I've got RPM showing there. You may have to give it some gas if the choke isn't fully working. The way you do that is there's a button on either side of the throttle that you wanted to press and push in, and you can see if he gives it gas, it revs, but we won't be going anywhere. So it's a way to kind of give the motor a little bit of gas while you're choking it, if just the choke's not starting the motor. If the motors have been sitting for a while or it's cold or whatever, you may have to do that.
Oh yeah.
It's possible that you may find the motors in the up position. It's more rare now because we do not raise the motors. If the motors are in the up position, this is my trim. I have two buttons here on the side that will lower it down. You hear that squeaky noise because they're all the way down right now. If they weren't, they'd be up and you'd hear a noise more like that. I don't know if that's caught on camera, but hopefully you guys can hear that noise. But this is how you raise and lower the motors here. So, as operating as a deckhand on the boat, one of the things I want you to know how to do is if you are doing the weekly on the boat, to be able to check the oil on the fire pump. You can see I've pulled up the middle deck plate here, and this is my Chevy V6 motor here that operates my pump. And the oil is right here for it. It's a yellow tab. And again, you'll have to be able to bring a rag out here and check it, but that's where it's going to be located. It's on the starboard side of the motor. And I'll kind of give a quick shot. You can see and here's your fire pump, and here's your pipe going to the lake. So this is your intake right here coming in.
Go.
So hopefully you guys will never have to deal with this, but I do want you to know how to troubleshoot the pump. If for whatever reason you cannot get water into the pump, or during your pumping operation it starts to slow, my strainer is back here. It's possible that you might have sucked in something from the lake, and I just pull up on this metal thing here and twist, and this thing is kind of finicky. You'll see when I try and put it back on. It's a little finicky. and it looks a lot like our strainers that are on our hard. We have pre-rigged to our hard suctions. But this is where it takes in water from the lake, and this is the strainer. And if you are having problems with flow, that's a good place to start, is to look here. When you put it back in, it sets into position, and I think I got it right. It's a little, like I said, it's a little finicky. And then this is even more finicky. But you put this back on, you give it a twist, you make sure it's locked, and you should be good to go. All right, so with our fire pump, we have a lake to pump valve here that's just electronic. So I have to basically hold the red button closed to close this pump, and it'll go solid whenever it's fully closed. And there, I'm fully closed. You should never see it like that except in this video, because we always keep it in the open position. And you should have a solid green on this whenever you turn power onto the lower house and you're going to operate the pump. People sometimes will get this confused with the deck gun, because that's also an electronic valve that I've got an open and close on. And you can see I'm fully open now on my deck gun. And I typically will keep that in the closed position. It's also better at night because there's just a lot less light being illuminated when all these are lit up. So to start the pump, what you want to do is start my blower. Basically, I have underneath there, you could have an accumulation of gas fumes that build up in there. And so the blower basically just introduces fresh air into the engine compartment, because I am going to be starting a motor. So if I did have a buildup of fumes, you'd want fresh up air in there and to get those out of there. I do have up here an indicator that tells me whether I've got a buildup of flammable fumes in the engine compartment. But to be honest with you, I don't know that that works really well. So I don't ever go off that. I just turn on the blower for about 30 seconds like we've done. And then to start the fire pump, I have a default switch here that needs to be held down, because everything is in default, all the gauges right now, and so it's a weird thing that they built into this pump, but this has to be held down until the pump is actually running. So I switch it to the on position while this is held down, and while this is held down, I hit the starter until it's running. Once it's running, I felt it click on my finger, and I can feel that got released, and I can let go of that, and now my pump is running. And let's see. So Benson, I don't want you to get wet there, but if I open up the deck gun, this isn't like a button press. This is like an old school pump where you throttle up by twisting this throttle. And I don't know if you can see, I've got the deck gun running out there. And you just pump it up to your desired pressure. So if you twist it counterclockwise, that throttles up. If you twist it clockwise, it throttles down. And then to shut down the pump, it's just an off switch. You just shut it down. And I'm closing the deck gun valve. So with the deck gun, when you guys are operating, a couple things I want you to know is I have a switch on this panel, and I have it labeled deck gun. If this is in the off position, the deck gun is operated remotely from inside the cab. And you can see right here, I have an up, down, left, right, fog, stream, and I can control it completely within the cab. This will not have power to it unless this switch is on. So if this switch is in the off position, this will not have power. So once you've got the deck gun on and running, you're going to be controlling it from here only if this switch is on. So for those of you guys that have been fighting fire for a while and been around on some older trucks, or maybe in your academy you've worked on some older trucks, this is my pressure relief valve. It's not automatically set for me. I have to set it. The way I do that right now, I'm pumping 100 PSI, and I'm just going to use that as an example if I wanted to set it at 100 PSI. What I do is I take it, and you can see I got lower, higher. Obviously it's more than 100 PSI. It's set more than 100 right now because my light is not on, indicating that it's not relieving any pressure. So if I go lower and spin it lower really slow, And I'm gonna keep spinning it really low until that, slow until that light comes on. Which is taking a while. There we go. So now I'm relieving pressure, and I know I'm relieving pressure now. I'm going to give it a half turn the opposite way, and that light should come off. So now I know it's set. And if you take a look at this, I'm going to throttle up, and you're going to see as I throttle up, this light turns on, and it's dumping pressure, keeping me at 100 psi. And that's how you set this pressure relief valve. Okay, we're set up in the front here. There is pressure to the back of these valves the minute that pump is running. So there's no valves inside the compartment that open and close these. They're done right here, and this whole piping system is pressurized to the back of these valves while that pump is running. So all you need to do to get water out is to open your valve once that pump is running. So if you're going to supply a land-based operation, then you'd hook your 5-inch directly into here. If you're going to be fighting fire, say, at a marina, and we're going to be tied up and we're going to be kind of a mobile pump for our YZ bundles, then I have it kind of set up right here to where I have a 2.5 I can hook to this one, and then I have 3 2.5s I can hook to this one. And if you notice, the 3 2.5s I have the reducers already on them that are 1.5-inch reducers, so that you could hook up regular hoses to them right now, and they don't necessarily need to be your YZs, but you could effectively hook up a YZ to each 2.5, and I have 4 2.5s. That's giving you 8 lines you can run off of this front discharge here, up to 8 lines. But right now it's set up to where, like, I have these. I have 2 little short sections that are in the boat in my hose compartment here, and basically the 2 little shorties there, you can hook your nozzles to them and fight 2 little hand lines right here on the valve, in addition or without the deck gun going. So that's kind of our setup here. You can do 5-inch for supply, or you can kind of do an array of if you need 2.5 or 1.5 inch. Okay, I also want to show you how to switch out the fog nozzle if you guys need a smoothbore for whatever reason. Sometimes we'll need more reach or whatever the case may be. We have 1,000 GPM deck gun up here, so we got plenty of flow, and if we need that extra reach, we can switch out the fog and put on a smoothbore. So Firefighter Benson's going to show you how to do that. Go ahead and start disconnecting. First you disconnect the electronics. That kind of is what does the fogging. It does the fogging, move from fog to a straight stream. It doesn't really move it up, down, left, right. So you'll still have the ability to move around your nozzle wherever you want, just not, obviously, you don't fog out a smoothbore. So he unscrews it, he puts the smoothbore on there. Again, it's a 1,000 GPM fog nozzle, but the pump is rated at 1,500 GPMs, just like your engine. So you can really boost up the flow if you need it. And but it's real easy. You just disconnect the electronics, unscrew your nozzle, and screw on your fog nozzle. So I have 2 more battery switches that we haven't talked about yet. One powers my lower house, which is the bottom console here, and one powers my upper house, which is the top console up here. And they're going to be in the same position as the motors that we talked about. So it's 1 click clockwise on each of them. And you know that you have them in the on position. If you look back, your LED should illuminate on your pump panel. And I also should get my radios turning on up at the house.
231.
Okay, with the house electronics, I'm going to kind of go over them roughly so you guys know what everything is in here. There's a lot of buttons and different things, and I kind of want you to know what all of them are for. I do have a normal stereo. I assume you guys know how to operate that. Right here is my VHF radio. A lot of the boats on Lake Travis, specifically the bigger ones, will have VHF. And channel 16 is a very universal channel for a distress call. So if I do have a vessel out there that maybe is taking on water that we're responding to or anything like that, there's a good chance that I can reach them on channel 16, or they're trying to reach me on channel 16. So this is how I communicate with the public, basically. Think of it that way. And then our bottom one right here is what you guys are more used to that are on the trucks, and we have our radios that operate just like as our trucks do. The one thing I will say about our 800 system that we have here is I have one speaker inside the cab here, and then I have speakers on the outside of the cab. In this little button, which is not labeled and really kind of inconspicuous, people all the time are like, what is this for? Well, depressing it, there's no indication of which is which, so it's kind of a bad system. But I can have my radio sound come through just the cab, or if I click this button, it'll come through the outside too. The reason we have that set up where I can shut off or turn on the outside speakers is so if I need my firefighters to hear radio traffic, I can have it on. But if I have, say, a patient that's maybe passed away or something like that, and that kind of traffic is being transmitted over the radio, I may not want all of Devil's Cove to hear that kind of thing. So I can turn on my outdoor speakers or turn them off right here, depending on what I feel is appropriate for the situation. And then right here I have all 5 of my spotlights. I have 2 in the front. So these up top operate my 2 front ones, and I don't know if you can see them in the shot. They're on the either side of the bow on the very corners. So I can turn them on, I can go up, down, left, right, use them however I need to. This is directly up here. I don't know if you can see my finger. I'm not flipping you off. It's on the very top of the cab, so it's center in the front of the cab. In fact, if you put the deck gun down low enough, you could blow that spotlight off. I only know that because I've done that. So don't put the deck gun down real low. But it's the same thing. It operates, it'll go left, right, back, forward. And then I have 2 rear-facing ones right here that are on my tower. So my radar tower in the back that raises up, they face rear, and I have 2 spotlights that'll face rear in the back there. And they're all pretty self-explanatory. You turn them on, they operate up, right, left, up, down, left, right. This is my windshield wiper, on and off here. I have 2 different levels, a fast and a slow. This is to raise and lower my radar tower, and I said, you know, here, if I can go down, and when I go up, you know it's all the way up because it makes that clicking sound. This right here is a flammable gas indicator in the engine compartment. This should go red and even beep at me if I have a buildup of flammable gases in my engine compartment. Tell me don't start my motor. And then this right here, if you've got power to the upper house, all this stuff will work here. I have all the time I can talk on this, test, and it's my PA to talk at you know, civilians if I need to, or firefighters that are on other boats. If you're the driver. And then I have these labeled. I have, you can see there's red cab, red all, and all lights. The reason that is because I can just illuminate the red lights that are on the cab, or I can illuminate all red lights. That's including the ones that are on the radar tower. And this is a popular one if you're responding at night, because if I do all lights, it's red and white, and that white tends to bounce off the water weird at night and create, and it just makes it hard for the driver visually. So at night, it's better to kind of respond with your all reds if you're going to use lights. And then I can turn my siren off and on. So now these will work. I have a siren and a horn. That's my on-off of the siren, and then I also have the horn. And that's how you operate that. All right, I'm going to talk about these electronics. They're not as difficult as what people think if you know a few things. Hopefully I can make it easy for you guys to navigate through these. The first thing, whenever you pull out and you're going to be firing up your electronics, you want to raise your radar tower. That's right here. The reason is you're going to go until you hear a nasty sound. It clicks really bad. And that indicates that it's in the full up position, because we keep it a little bit down for when we raise the boat. We don't want to get the radar tower up on the roof. So now my radar tower is fully raised. and I'm going to go over the Garmin first. The Garmin has a power button in the upper right. You just hit it one time and it'll start firing up. And it's going to go through its like basically startup mode. And the things that I want to power up from jump, just so that they're there if I need them, are my radar and my FLIR. Those are the two main things that I need to get, that it takes me to get them going. They don't just turn on their own. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that. It's going to fire up here. I agree. I just hit the select button when it said select to agree. And so first I'm going to fire up the FLIR, because FLIR and the radar, not sonar, people get them confused, but the radar and the FLIR are specific to this Garmin. They are not on the Lowrance, they're only on this Garmin. So now both of them are capable, that's what the FLIR and the radar are only hooked up to this Garmin. So I'm going to basically go to information, which is counterintuitive. FLIR is one of the harder things to remember because it doesn't say FLIR on the screen. But if I go to information, I should have something here that says video. And if I don't, that means that I go over here and my FLIR does not have power to it yet. So I power it on by hitting the power button on the FLIR and then come back over here, and you can see on the screen now I have a video button. And if I hit that video, it'll fire up my FLIR. And there it is. So one of the main buttons I want you guys to remember on this Garmin is your home button, because that brings you back to here, to your main menu anytime you hit home. So the next thing I want to fire up, I told you I actively need to start two things. Everything else starts on its own, which is one was your video, which is the FLIR, and the next one is your radar. So when I go into radar, I have a little thing here that says transmit radar. I hit transmit radar and now it's spinning up. So if I go up here, and we usually use cruising for the radar, you can see that it's spinning up. Now it's the radar is working. I have it set, you can see right here, at 1/8 of a mile out. I usually keep it at a half a mile, so up here, if you look over here, I can increase my range. And now if you look down here, I'm looking at a half mile in every direction. So what the radar is doing is it's spinning around, and anything out in space that's a solid object, it's coming back as yellow. So it'll indicate the cliffs here. I've got a marina over on my right here, and marina and some shoreline over on my right here. And then if it's really wavy, I can see the opening to this is the opening to Devil's Cove here. It takes a little bit of playing around with, but I want you guys to know how to start it up, and that's how you go through the startup. So now the two things are started up. I can hit my home button again. And if I don't just want radar, I don't just want FLIR, I can go to combinations, and I've got combinations of different things. So let's see. Here I have sonar, which is looking underneath me, basic sonar, and then I have my FLIR going here. And you can set your combinations to different things. Like I can set my combinations to add video to it, so that I'm looking at radar, sonar, and video. You can change different combinations. I'm not going to get into that right now. The main things I want you guys to take away from the Garmin is how to turn on the radar, how to turn on the FLIR, and how to navigate. Navigating is the basic parts of navigation that I want you to know is how to get to your home screen and how to get to your combination screen. And from your home screen, how to fire up the two different things that need to be turned on. And I'm sorry, before we shut down, one other thing is, if you are navigating at night, this is crazy bright and you're not going to be able to see out your window here. So the way to dim the screen is to hit the power button real quick, and I come up with a backlight. I have it on max right now, and I click on that, and I could go down. See my up and down? I go down, and I can turn it all down here, or up. Okay, now we're going to talk about the Lowrance. One of the cool things about the Lowrance, the same thing, to power it on, you just hit your power button. The Lowrance also has sonar, just like the Garmin, but it has an additional one that we know of as structure scan. So the structure scan is what's specific to the Lowrance, and the FLIR and the radar are specific to the Garmin. Outside of that, they both kind of have GPS. I like the GPS on the Lowrance better. They both have sonar, but this one has structure scan, and that's what's specific to it. And the cool thing about the Lowrance is once you fire it on, it goes to the last screen that it was set up on. So I don't have to go up and set everything up. It just goes with whatever was last on there. Hit accept, and this is what was used last. So let's go to pages. Home is your money maker on this Garmin, and pages is on this one here. So I go to pages, and it should. There we go. Okay. So you can see I've got kind of a roundabout here, and if you look up at my cursor, I've got arrows that go left and right here, and up and down. So I can go left and right or up and down within each thing. So right now I'm under maps. If I can scroll over, the next one is sonar. Scroll over, the next one's structure. I have steer. This is not enabled. This is. I've got things that I can do in there. There's nothing in there that's hooked up, and there's nothing in the, remember I said this one can do radar. There's nothing hooked up in the radar, so there's or in the info. So really your main ones are chart, sonar, and structure that you're going to be dealing with on this one. And anything that I go into, so if I want to hit structure and I want to look at the structure scan, I hit enter, and it gives me a full screen of structure scan. And right now I got it down. I'll do auto range frequency. I don't really, right now, the quick down and dirty is the higher frequency I have, which the highest is 800, is going to be the most detailed view, but it also doesn't penetrate as far. So right now I can't see the bottom, but if I switch it to a lower frequency, which is 455, I should be able to see the bottom, because you can see I've got nothing here. And it just switched, and so it's really slow, but I've got something starting to come up on screen here because it scrolls. The screen scrolls from right to left, and now I've got a view of the bottom. And my structure scan is indicating now I can see the bottom. It's 123 feet down. Water temp is 85. So know that Pages is my moneymaker, and if I utilize the top menu of whatever I'm wanting, if I'm wanting structure or the chart or whatever, if I'm using the top one, it's going to do the whole screen. If I add, say I add structure, chart, well, it's going to be structure, chart. So I'm going to have 3 screens. Let's go down and see. And I have this down. Okay, so right now I have this looking straight down. I have my top one here looking left and right, and that a whole nother class needs to be done. This is just going to be basic navigation through the electronics. There's a whole class to be done on how to interpret and read them and hone in on them to dial them in on whatever you're trying to find. But you can see I've got a chart going here. I've got 2 structure scans, and I did that all through Pages. So if I have Pages again, it sends me back. And you can see that's what I was on. I was on structure plus chart. So if I scroll, say, left, right here I've got structure plus chart. But if I just want to look at a map, I can go up to chart, hit enter, and it'll be full screen map. It'll change resolutions. There we go. So it all depends on what the driver wants, on what you're trying to accomplish. You can do full screen on if you're just doing something specific. A lot of times when I'm looking for a victim underwater, I just have a structure scan screen up here, and I don't have all the, like, that way I have the biggest view of what I'm trying to look at. But I guess the takeaway from this is I want you guys to know the moneymaker button on this is Pages. That's how you navigate through here, and then it's pretty basic operation from there, left and right, up and down. And then again, if you're driving at night, this screen will need to be dimmed, and it's done the same way as the Garmin. You just hit the power real quick, and I've got a brightness thing here, and I can use my cursor up and left and right to brighten or dim it. Okay, so I'm gonna go over these electronics here. I've got cabin lights here. And my first one here turns on, if you can see these right here, Cole, is white lights. And keep it on that because my next switch over, if I turn that off, turns on red lights. So if you're operating at night, you're gonna want the second switch. And now we can come back here. So I turned off the whites and now the red ones are on. This one actually goes to nothing. So you don't need to worry about it. The ones that you'll always find in the on position are indicated because they're painted red, and they're the electronics. They run my, this one actually runs my structure scan. It turns on the amplifier to my structure scan, and then this one runs my two screens here that we went over earlier, the Garmin and the Lowrance. So moving on, I have anchor light here. Your anchor light is just your white light that's on top of your tower that indicates you're not moving. If you just have this on, that indicates that you're anchored and you're not moving and it's nighttime. If I have my navs on too, that puts my red and greens on that are in the front of the boat on either side, and that will indicate to other drivers that I am underway. So if I'm underway at night, both my anchor light and my nav lights must be on. The spare is not a spare, it's the Deackhand, and we went over that earlier. This is your electronics, I went over that. Spreader lights are my work lights. They'll light up, and if you want to walk out, Cole, and show it, it's right out here. I have a work light in the front of the boat and in the back of the boat, and it turns those on. These are what are called spreader lights here. And the blower I indicated earlier because that was what we needed to use first prior to firing up our fire pump. It puts fresh air into the engine compartment. Wash down, bilge pump. I have a total of 3 bilge pumps on this boat, and 2 of which are automatic, and then I have 1 manual, and this is my manual right here. So I shouldn't really have to use that because the other ones should kick on automatically. I have 2 in the back and 1 midship. And then I also have a wash down right here. What that does is it turns on the pump for my wash down hose, if you want to get a shot of that wash down hose right here in the corner. And it turns on that hose, so now that can be used. All right, I got 2 scene lights, one on this side, one on that side, so I've got them on port and starboard. The scene lights are really bright. They're LED, and they can raise and lower and turn and wherever you need them to point. But I think the important thing to note, they just have a switch right here. And one of the things to note about these is this is one of the very few systems on this boat that doesn't require any battery switch to be on. So they're hardwired to the battery, the scene lights. And they're really easy to operate. You can lower, raise them however you need them. Okay, on either side of the rails, sometimes if you are working on a patient or you're working just on the deck, if we went over the spreader lights, if those are on, it's really bright, and if it's night, it may make it difficult for the driver to see. Another option you have is underneath the rail on either side, and you'll have to come in and see this, is you do have a little work light. It's tap operated, so I click it, and it just went on. And it kind of at night gives you enough light to work on your patient.
Go.
Okay, also on my panel here, I've got the ability to operate my front gate and the hydraulic system there. I can raise and lower it as the driver. There is an additional set of switches that are out here that do the same thing. These will raise and lower it. So you can do it from this position or the driver position. Okay, so I showed you the 2 places. Our hydraulic system on this boat operates that front gate. It's all hydraulic. It has a 2,000-pound rating because it's hydraulic, which gives us the ability to lift up the front of the boat, or if it's down, we can walk on it. We don't have to worry about locking it as much because it's much more secure than the cable system that's out there. That's kind of Lake Assault's claim to fame, is they've patented the hydraulic front gate. But if for whatever reason it fails and it's in the down position or it's in an undesirable position, You can release the hydraulics and pull it one way or another in a real slow manner. The way you release the hydraulics, I'm going to take the camera, and there is that yellow valve right there. If you switch that and pull that up and make it inline, it releases the hydraulics, and it gives you the ability to basically the fluid to free flow either way, so you can pull the front gate up if you needed to. Alright, once you get your patient safely on your boat through either the ramp or just bringing them over from another boat, then we have a couple different places that we can place a patient. The position, like the best position, is on the port side of the boat. The reason for that is I can put him all the way up against me, and he doesn't have anything to hit his head, whereas on this side, I can get a shot of that. This is in the way, kind of to hit his head. I can put a patient there, but I typically go to this side first, just because I don't have to worry about that thing hitting his head. And we have the ability to strap him in. So I have little hook places underneath the rail here, and they go down to here, and then I can tighten up. And you don't want to tighten too tight, just get them nice and secure. And now he's secure in there. And note that we carry a total of 6 of these straps on the boat. And I can do 3 backboarded patients. You want the head towards the bow, and that's just because when we do get going, we're usually doing it in a plow, which is a fairly big angle for the boat. So if they're head down, then all that blood's going to be going in their head, unless that's advantageous for the patient at that point. But I typically put them in the head towards the bow position, and I can do a patient here. I can do one on the deck, and you can see my attachment points here. I've got the same thing on this side, and I run them over this way, and I can do one on this bench right here. If I am doing 3 patients, like I said, I have a total of 6 straps, so I would do 2 straps per patient. If I'm doing 2 patients, then I'm doing 3 straps a patient, and if I'm doing 1 patient, I'm doing 3 straps. So just know you have a total of 6 straps. I can get 3 patients backboarded in here. This is position 1, position 2 is the other bench, and position 3 is the floor. So underneath the driver's seat here is where you're going to find your life vest for you and your patients, if need be. I have 4 of these yellow ones. The yellow ones are not self-inflating. They're manual inflate, which means you have a tab at the bottom that you pull that will inflate them. I have these red ones in here also. The red ones will be self-inflating. So if you fall in the water, you're unconscious. It's a little salt tablet that dissolves and releases a CO2 cartridge and blows it up. So these are automatically inflating if you fall in the water. And then I have your basic orange ones. There's a total of 11 vests on here for you and your patients if need be. Also in the bottom of this compartment is a toolbox, and I have just various tools and fuses and stuff for the boat. In the compartment that's back here, I have a AED, and it's an old school AED, and then I also have basically your med bag that kind of has everything you need in there. I'm not going to go over the whole med bag. If you're ever checking out the boat, I want you guys to kind of go through that, see where everything's at in there, and get familiar with the medical equipment. For the purposes of this class, I just want you to know where it's located. Okay, the fire extinguisher is going to be here on the side. Right now you're looking at inside the cab on the port side of the boat. So that's here. You also got binoculars here, and on the other side opposite is where you're going to find your clipboard in case you need to take down information about a patient. It's good to note, recently we made an addition that was on the advice of engineer Jeff Dudick, and I thought it was a great suggestion. If we run on a boat that's sinking, we really didn't have a way to help them other than to get them off their sinking boat. So what we did is we now carry an assortment of plugs in the toolbox of the boat. I don't mean like patch plugs to plug a hole in the boat. I mean like the actual plugs that come standard with boats. We have all the different kinds, so that if a boat forgets to put their plug in and they're taking on water, we can remedy that by giving them one of our plugs. Like I said, we carry an assortment of them. The other thing we can do now is I have a pump here that I can basically drop into their hull and pump out water. It's a little 50 cc basically sub pump, except you don't really submerge the pump. You just submerge the tubing down there, and it should suck it out. And again, I'm not going to go into how to operate all that. That's probably another class, but I do want you to know that's under this compartment. We're in the rear of the boat on the starboard side. If you undo that compartment, it's there.